So my name's Hallie Frazee. I'm our Wildfire Communications Manager for Pacific Power. So here to talk to you guys tonight about what we're doing in Pilot Rock and across the state of Oregon to prevent wildfires from starting and then mitigate those effects if we do have wildfires in the area. So happy to see so many local folks here. We've also got some of our team from the local area as well. David, our veg management, here, wave a hand. We've also got Mike, our area manager. We've got Lori here, our regional business manager. Amber, who's our emergency manager for this area. Kevin, who's our operations manager. And in the back, hiding back there, is Tom. He's our VP over here for Pacific Power for operations. So, and then up here, I've got our team of experts who are going to be talking to you tonight about what we do for wildfire. Maybe. So we'll go through a little bit, talk about the local service area, just hear what we're doing in Pilot Rock and the nearby area. And then Chester is going to talk to you a little bit about what we do for situational awareness. Chester is our senior meteorologist here for Pacific Power, brings a lot of experience, and he'll be showing you also kind of some modeling of how we do the fire spread. Then we'll get into talking about how we are, kind of rebuilding or enhancing the system to make it stronger, more resilient to fire and other damage, and the other types of things we do to operate the system more safely. And our director for wildfire mitigation, Melissa Swinson, will be talking with you guys about that. And then we'll be talking a little bit from the emergency management and preparedness side of what you can do to be ready for wildfire season. After that, we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A. We can do that, for those here in the room. We also are streaming this, so for folks online, we'll be able to hear your questions as well. But I'm going to start us off with a little bit of video talking about kind of what we do, how much we're investing, and kind of the effort we're putting into wildfire mitigation for Pacific Power.
We are living in a world where there is more extreme weather, and wildfire risk continues to escalate. Here at PacifiCorp, we are making the investments necessary to protect the public and to protect the infrastructure and to protect the people of this company as well.
While the wildfire risk has been increasing here in the West, the investments that PacifiCorp has made has risen right along with it. To date, we've already spent over $500 million in wildfire mitigation, and the current forecast for deploying the system hardening that's involved in the wildfire mitigation plan reaches into the billions over the next 8-10 years. It becomes important to understand, well, where do we prioritize those investments? And so we want to make sure we're targeting that large investment where it's going to make the most impact, where it's going to reduce that fire risk the most.
We have an expansive weather station network here at PacifiCorp. By the end of 2023, in Pacific Power, we had nearly 300 weather stations, and in Rocky Mountain Power, we had nearly 200 weather stations. They're there because we're collecting important meteorological data that we're going to feed into our local weather forecast models. Temperature, wind, moisture levels, wind gusts. These hundreds of weather stations give us better data so that we can make better decisions on how to mitigate fire risk and how to protect the system from extreme weather events.
So by establishing an internal meteorology team, they're able to run these risk models with our own weather station network to help identify that risk no matter where and no matter when across our entire service territory throughout the year.
We have amazing, really cutting-edge technology. We have a computer model that covers more than 1 million square miles. It forecasts weather for every single point across that entire region. We have access to 2 types of modeling. We have the short-term modeling and the long-term modeling.
With both that long-term and short-term view, we're able to identify where the fire risk is, and by identifying that, we can then decide what mitigations to deploy.
We've taken 30 years of historical data, and we use that to identify areas of potential risk so that we can mitigate as much as we can ahead of potential wildfires in the future.
By looking back at that data, we understand that when the conditions are at their driest and when the wind is at its windiest, that top 5%, when those 2 things come together, that's where 98% of the catastrophic fires have occurred. When those conditions are present, we want to, for safety reasons, de-energize the lines and let those conditions pass. And so we deploy that when we know that the conditions are escalating, but they're nowhere near that top 5%. And so we give ourselves a little bit of a safety buffer, say a 15% dryness, 15% windiness, to make sure that we're making a good balanced decision between the risk and the outages that are created through the mitigation steps of de-energizing.
I'm optimistic because I know that we are doing the work necessary to keep the public safe and to protect the infrastructure of the utility.
As that risk has increased, our response has increased as well to match it and do everything possible to reduce that risk of fire in the areas we serve.
All right. So as I mentioned, that was kind of an introduction to what we're going to talk about tonight. Each of our experts up here is going to go into a little bit more depth of all of these different things, just to kind of give you guys an overview. When we talk about wildfire mitigation, that essentially means how we're reducing the risk for wildfire. And we kind of throw these into a couple different buckets. Situational awareness, this is the risk modeling we do. That's the short-term modeling, the long-term modeling, both the weather forecast, but also fire conditions. And so we have a lot of different tools and technologies and team members that work on that, like Chester. Our operational practices, this has to do with how we operate the system when wildfires are present or when the risk is very high. So we may change how we do certain work practices, or we may have to put settings on different devices to protect from wildfire and spark. We're also investing a lot in making our system more secure, to be better able to withstand wildfire conditions. So we are doing a lot, whether that's how we do inspections, where we do our vegetation management, how we rebuild lines, and how we're putting in new technology. But all of this is kind of underlined by what we do for engagement. So when we get to come out to communities like Pilot Rock, talk to you guys about what we're doing for wildfire, but also what you can do for wildfire prevention as well to keep you and your family safe. We do this with many different audiences, others in our industry, public safety partners, communities, tribal nations. We have an opportunity to really share this information with a lot of people. And that's kind of our focus tonight, is to really kind of get the word out about what we're doing and what you can do as well. So as I mentioned, we'll just do a little bit of preview of what we're looking at here in Pilot Rock. Everything in the blue is our service area for this area. Only 7 lines of transmission miles, but about 34 miles of distribution. We've got 1 substation. You'll notice that there's not any purple on this map. Purple shows us where the highest risk areas or our fire high consequence areas are. So Pilot Rock is not in a fire high consequence area, which is a good thing. It doesn't mean there's no fire risk. It just means the risk is substantially lower than maybe other parts of the state. You'll see kind of in the map on the corner down in Southern Oregon and parts around Hood River have that purple, which is where we have much higher risk for fires. So I'm going to hand it over to Chester now, talk to you guys a little bit about what we're doing for situational awareness.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm a loud talker, so if I'm too loud, let me know. All right. I want to make sure I'm nice and clear, and really excited to be out here. Thank you, Hallie, for the introduction. Again, my name is Chester Lampkin. I am a senior meteorologist here at Pacific Power. So I have 20 years of experience in meteorology. I've worked all over the country, Texas, Colorado, Maryland, Missouri. That's where my roots are, Midwest. Been out here in the Pacific Northwest for about 2 years now, really just loving being up here. It's just such a beautiful place with fantastic people. I actually come from a media background. I left media because, I needed something different, and came here to the utility just a couple years ago, just about 2 summers ago. So this is really my 3rd fire season. And so that means, just like you all, just a couple years ago, I was just an electric utility customer. I didn't really know much about how this all worked, and the hard work that the linemen do, and all of our crews, our operations, how they make it all put together. I mean, they are putting their putting their best work in to keep the power on every single day. But there's a lot of challenges out there that we're dealing with. And that's extreme weather. Extreme weather is more common, and wildfires happening more and more, not just in Oregon, but all across these great United States. We've seen big fires in the last several years. Texas, Colorado, Hawaii, Florida, Louisiana. We're seeing them all over the country. And just last year, we had a record-setting fire season in Oregon. So you all are here to learn about what we're doing to keep the community safe, keep the power on, reliable, etc. And we appreciate you all coming out tonight. I know your time is valuable, so I just want to thank you all for engaging with us. Our job is to stay safe and to stay ahead of extreme weather conditions. So my number one job as a meteorologist and the rest of the meteorology team at Pacific Power is to know what is going to happen before it happens. And we are one of the first utilities across the United States, including here in the West, where a lot of the fire danger has historically been around. We are one of the first utilities to invest in advanced weather research, forecasting, and have that in-house. We house it in Pacific Power. We're in the state of Oregon. We're in the area. So I'm going to talk about a couple things. One of the first things is situational awareness. Hallie alluded to it. And what does it mean? There's probably a lot of military vets or people who've worked in law enforcement. You know what situational awareness is. And for us in meteorology, it's literally knowing what is happening right now. So we need to know what weather is occurring, what has occurred, because that informs us going forward. Knowing what the fire weather conditions are also incredibly important for what we do. We're collecting and analyzing weather data in real time so we can help predict wildfire conditions. We use this data to inform operations on how to operate the system. I mean, they're the professionals, they know how to do this, but they want to be able to operate the system in a safe manner. So we tell them when the fire weather conditions are critical. So again, situational awareness is about what's happened, what is happening now today, but also that second part, which we'll talk a little bit more about in just a few minutes. I probably should have clicked to this screen already by now. We're going to talk about what's coming soon. We are handling the short-term weather and fire risk based on our forecast experience and our advanced modeling. So the forecast process, right? Again, we need to know what's happening now. How do we do that? We deliver a risk forecast every single day for the company. We need to know what's happening with the weather right now, today, everywhere that we provide power. That's 6 states, 9 states where we have transmission. We're a team of 5 currently. There's 2 of us based in Portland, and there are 3 meteorologists based in Salt Lake City. But we support each other. So I go to Salt Lake, I forecast for that area, I support them when they have weather issues, and they support us as well, because we are one company. They're experienced meteorologists. I would bet my forecast on any of their forecasts. That's how confident I am of them. In Portland, we forecast for Oregon, primarily for Oregon, Washington, and California, but again, we will forecast for the other states. And every day there's 1 meteorologist on duty covering all 3 states in Pacific Power, again, from Walla Walla all the way south through southern Oregon and south into northern California. We forecast 5 days out. We are focused on the transmission and distribution lines. The distribution lines are the lines that connect to your homes, and the transmission are the lines that carry the high voltage electricity from their source to our substations, which again brings down the electricity to the distribution, which goes to your house. So we're forecasting for the entire territory. It's tens of thousands of lines and line miles, if you will. And if I say anything wrong, operations, please keep me honest, because you all are the one. Yeah, I know you all will. especially Mr. Lanigan back there. He'll keep me honest. He's around one. If we're a power company, we're watching the weather in your neighborhood, essentially is what I'm trying to say here in the short term. We're just coming out of winter storm season, and we concentrate a lot on winter storms, wind and ice and snow. That causes problems. It causes outages, and we try to keep operations system ops aware of impactful winter weather. But fire season is always in the back of our mind in the winter. We're thinking about it, we're planning for it, and as we head into spring, where we are now, we start thinking about fire season. We may not literally have fire danger now, but we are thinking about it right on through the early part of autumn until that first rain really comes in and wets things down. Okay, how are we aware of what's going on? This is a massive area that we have to cover. Well, it helps that we have lots of data, and we have some really smart people who have helped us put together an advanced computer model that we run on our own, on our own computers that we own, belongs to us, Pacific Power. We have a computer model that's high resolution and covers more than, I think, what did I say in the video? More than 10,000 square, I don't know, 100,000 square miles, whatever the number is, it's not important. It covers the entire Western United States. So Oregon, Washington, it goes all the way to Colorado. That's how massive this weather domain is for our computer model. We have our own weather stations, our own weather station network, also mentioned in the video, that is throughout Oregon and provides 24/7 monitoring of all the stuff you would see on a TV weather report or on your smartphone, temperature, humidity, et cetera. But we also use those data points, those weather stations, to calculate what the fuel moistures are. And that's important because fuel moisture dictates how fire behaves. Wind, dead fuel, live fuels, those three things. Terrain is also a big part of that as well. Pacific Power Stations plus other weather stations along our transmission and distribution lines are available on our in-house computer modeling and on a public website I'm going to talk more about in just a couple minutes. And all of our weather data is tied to every circuit, every line of distribution and transmission throughout our company, including right here in Pilot Rock. So everybody's tied to a weather station. We're using that weather data to watch the fire risk and the weather risk in your area. That data is available on this website. I'm going to mention it a couple times. It's free, available to the public, pacificpowerweather.com. There's also a little demo of it playing on the video on our little fancy little board here. You can get weather data from there. It's publicly available. Our weather stations are right there. We're showing you what we're investing in. We want you all to use the data. Sometimes people who aren't even Pacific Power customers will use the data. That's how valuable it is. The National Weather Service, we share it with them. We share it with our community partners, the different EMs and the Forest Service. Everybody who wants to use it, it's available to them because we're all fighting the same fight, right? We're all trying to mitigate or lower the risk of wildfire. That's plain and simple, like that's our goal. You know, so that data is available there. We have hundreds of weather stations and hundreds more planned in the future. And again, I mentioned some of our partners. We don't operate just by ourselves. We work with other partners, other utilities, other agencies, especially our valuable partners in the National Weather Service, NOAA, the National Interagency Fire Center, the Forest Service, everyone who is working to solve this problem, this community problem, we will work with them. So again, pacificpowerweather.com, you can get weather information there. It even has some of, if you're really nerding out, if you're really interested in some weather data, I can show you a little bit about it after this, if you're interested in that, including our own model, our weather research forecast model. This is a model that is used by National Weather Service, but it's also used by a lot of universities, a lot of utilities. There are versions of this particular model being used by people all over the world. I worked in another country for a couple of years, and they even had their own WRF, weather research forecast model. They created their own WRF model that they ran on their own high performance computer clusters. They're fancy computers, high speed computers. We have one that is specifically for the Western United States, and we use it specifically for Pacific Power. And we use it to forecast regular weather stuff, wind, humidity, temperatures, all that good stuff, rain, snow, ice, but also the fire weather variables that we use to decide how we can operate the system safely. That being things that come from the National Fire Data Rating System, the same stuff that the firefighters are using to determine how fire is going to behave when there are wildfire outbreaks throughout the state of Oregon and across the western United States. So we've got fire weather variables come from our in-house computer model. We also use our weather data that comes from our weather stations, all the publicly available stations, and it gives us that ability to have that second element of situational awareness, that short-term fire and weather risk data. Again, we've got that in-house model I mentioned. That's that picture's the domain. That's where it exists. It covers, again, almost all over the western United States. And we use that data, that backwards-looking data, that 30-year analysis that we did where we looked back at a historical analysis, we've seen what the worst fire weather days were over a period of 30 years across the domain, including all of Oregon, and we use that to inform how we're going to determine what are the riskiest days going into the future. And we don't just do this once, we do it every year. We refresh this data every year. We also have a data scientist who's an incredibly smart dude. He helps us understand the data. He helps us understand how we can make better weather forecasts and how we can run the system a little bit more safely every single year. So we're constantly trying to get better. We're able to identify, again, those days, the most extreme days of fire weather where wildfires are likely to ignite and potentially spread quickly. So our weather forecast modeling gives us forecasts every day from the past now 3+ decades. We use that to look forward. We make a 5-day forecast that includes weather and fire weather, how it's going to impact our lines, the risk of power outages, wildfire ignition, how fire spreads and behaves. We run modeling, fire modeling every single day that gives us sort of a score. Hey, what area is this looking like? What is this area looking like as far as the threat of wildfire and the potential for wildfire? We're still in a low risk right now. This is the time of year where we're not concerned because we just started green up, right? Things are just getting green. I saw all of the fields out here green and lush. So this is the time of year where we're prepping for fire season. We're at right before the cusp of the heat waves, et cetera. Last thing I want to show you is some of that advanced fire modeling. And again, I'm going to show you the PacificPowerWeather.com website. I'm going to walk you through this very quickly. This is about a 2-minute example of some of the modeling that we use. This is called a fire sim, and we use this wildfire analysis fire sim to simulate fire. So this is not an actual fire that ever occurred. This is a fire that could have occurred. Let's say some person was out here doing something not very smart, very unsafe, and somehow a fire started on this day, July 7th, 2024, south of Pilot Rock, right? This is a simulation of what that fire would behave like, assuming there is no suppression, assuming that the firefighters can't get to this fire for whatever reason. Now, we know our firefighters, they do a great job, and they are there to knock down a lot of these vegetation fires, so they end up being no big of a deal. But this helps us inform us and informs operation on how we can keep the community safe if for some reason something like this were to get out of control. This is an advanced fire model that takes into account all of that weather data I talked about from our in-house computer model. And this fire modeling company has been around for decades. And though it's not perfect, it's a model, they have done a great job of being able to simulate how fires would behave, assuming that, again, nobody was out there fighting that fire, and how quickly they can spread. This is an 8-hour simulation on July 7th, starting at approximately, I believe, like 11 a.m. I ran the simulation myself. So it shows you an idea how it would impact the Pilot Rock community should there be a fire in a location like that on this particular day, based on how dry the fuels are, live and dead fuels, and temperature, wind, et cetera, humidity, that sort of thing. I could talk more about this if you have any questions about how this works. It's pretty impressive stuff. It's beyond me. Some of it is very smart computer programming, egghead people that are beyond my abilities, but they've done a great job. Some of the other stuff that we're showing you here, that PacificPowerWeather.com website I mentioned before, check it out if you can. Has our weather information on there. You can also see some of our weather data that comes from our WRF model. And it helps inform us, and we use this daily. I use this when I'm the forecaster on duty. I'll be on the forecast desk starting next week. I'm able to use this to determine what the weather's going to be like in a place like Pilot Rock and all over this part of Oregon and all across our territory. And it also helps inform us when it comes to the fire risk, the risk of fire across this area. So this is a tool that we use, publicly available. You can see radar, current conditions, our in-house computer model, all types of data on there. Wind, humidity, that sort of stuff is displayed here on that map that was just up there. And it's kind of like a little weather nerd's paradise. Little kid me would have loved this, you know. Anyway, of course, when I was a kid, we didn't have the internet. We had TV news, and that's how you got your weather. I digress. So that covers it for the weather section. But that's only one piece of the puzzle, as Hallie mentioned. We're going to talk about how we are making the system stronger and better. And the way we're doing that is through our mitigation practices, how we're lowering the risk of wildfire. And the person who's going to talk about that is Melissa. She's going to talk about that right now. So everybody, let's introduce Melissa. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chester. It's hard to follow the weather guide because everyone's like, oh, I want to look at the weather conditions and the weather stations because it's very cool stuff. But I'm very happy to be here. Like Chester said, my name's Melissa Swenson, and I'm the Director of Wildfire Mitigation Delivery for Pacific Power. And I'm really happy to be here at Pilot Rock. When I was a kid, my parents, every summer, we would load up the 2 kids and the dog and all the camping equipment, and we would go camp across Oregon. So when I heard we were coming to Pilot Rock, I call up Mom. I'm like, Mom, did we ever go to Pilot Rock? And she's like, no, we missed that. And so I'm very happy to finally be here. No longer do a lot of camping and throwing the 2 kids and the dog and all the camping gear in the back, so very happy to be here. So as Chester said, I'm here to talk to you about how we make our system resilient and some of our operational practices that we do to make sure that our system is operating safely in some of those conditions that Chester talked about. So really, this is about making our system more resilient to hazards. And up here on the screen, you can see some of the examples of the things we do to help make our system stronger. And some of this means we're using things like cover conductor or aerial spacers or fire-resistant poles or undergrounding in some cases of power lines, and also installing smart devices on lines. So I'll give you a few examples. So rebuilding and making that system more resilient can look like putting cover conductor on lines. And over here on the display that says right equipment, you can see an example of cover conductor right at the top. And you can see a lot of conductor and a lot of power lines that you may see driving down the roads are bare wire. That's what we're all used to sort of seeing on lines. Cover conductor adds a layer of insulation on it. And I was thinking about this when I was driving up here today. It's really like you don't have bare wires for your electrical appliances in your house. There's a layer of insulation on them to make sure if something hits it, someone touches it, it doesn't short out, no one gets hurt, there's a spark. That's a very simple explanation of how cover conductor works on our lines. And I'm going to look at the operations people, they're going to go, no, nope, it doesn't. No, okay, I'm getting a good sign, like, yep, I got thumbs up there, all right. But what it does is it makes ignition less likely if something taps on that line. So if you think of a tree branch hitting a line, a balloon hitting a line, those are things that can cause a spark on bare wire. So cover conductor is one of those things that helps insulate it to make sure that there's less likelihood of a spark happening if a tree branch or a wire or a balloon or something hits those lines. We also use things like aerial spacers, and you can see an example up here. And those are suspended from a cable that's not energized, and it makes sure that the energized lines don't tap each other if maybe the wind starts blowing and they start swaying back and forth. We also are using undergrounding in some select areas to help prevent power lines from inclement weather. So if you think of things like, again, wind blowing or even ice storms, undergrounding helps, prevent that. And that is in some areas where it makes sense to do that. And we're also replacing our wooden poles with more fire-resistant poles like metal or steel or fiberglass, because those are more resistant to fire. And then I just want to give you an idea of what we're doing to help strengthen the system. So as of the end of 2024, we have completed 175 miles of overhead cover conductors, so those insulators and aerial spacers. In 2025, our objective is to complete 175 miles of hardening by the end of the year. And as of the end of March, I just checked this before I came up here, we've completed 67 miles. So we're on track to hit that target so far by the end of the year. And we're also continuing to do some work on those smart devices. And those are things like relays and reclosers and communicating fault indicators. And there's an example of a communicating fault indicator on this display here. And you can think of those relays and reclosers and those communicating fault indicators working in tandem. And I'm not an engineer, so I'm going to explain it in lay terms because that's how I understand it. So the relays and reclosers are really they're sort of paying attention to, is there a tap on the line? Did something hit the line? One of those branches or a balloon or something hit the line, and they're going, oh, is there something on the line? And they're checking and sort of going, okay, is it still on the line? And if it is, they will shut off the power in fractions of the second to make sure that they can prevent a spark. Those communicating fault indicators are then sending the information back to our operations center going, hey, the power is out. Here's the general location of where it's at. So instead of having crews having to go out and go, it's somewhere on this line and drive and drive and drive, those fault indicators are helping them narrow down where that outage is so they can go check it out more quickly and understand what they need to do to restore power. And I just want to give you an idea of where we're doing those system strengthening efforts this year. So in the center here, you can see a map of Oregon and then the zoom in of where we're doing the work on the system strengthening, where those 175 miles are. And so up here, you can see we're doing some work between Hood River and just to the east of Mosier. Down in Southern Oregon, we have a lot of projects going on. We have some work going on outside of Klamath Falls and the areas of Lost River, Henley, Hager, and Pine Grove. And then we also have over near Cave Junction and Grants Pass and just over the border into California, we have a lot of projects. And if you remember, Hallie was talking about those areas in purple, those fire high consequence areas. This is where that work is happening because we know those are the areas of the highest fire consequences or our highest risk areas. But I really like these zoom-ins because it gives you a really good idea of the effort it takes to put in the work. So we see, power lines when we're driving down the road, or we may see a power line that ends at the end of our street and we go, oh, that's the end of the line. Circuits will run and weave in and out of roads and streets, and you can see it's a really complex job to do that system hardening effort because it's a lot of miles, it's a lot of complexity there. Some of the things we do on a regular basis as well is vegetation management. So vegetation management can look like a lot of things. It can look like ground inspections. It could also look like going up in the air to do surveillance from above to see what's going on. And what are we looking for when we do these vegetation inspections? We're looking for, are there limbs in or near lines? Is there vegetation under the equipment? So if you think of tall grass under our lines or around our poles. We're also looking for hazardous trees. So trees that are diseased, maybe looking a little sketchy. Maybe you may have one in your yard and you're like, I really need to take care of that. If they're around our lines, if we see those sort of hazardous trees around our lines, we're going to take care of them. So we can't do your backyard. That's still on you. But if we see right around our wires in our right-of-way, we will take care of it. And what we do is in those areas of fire high consequence, we are working more frequently and to make sure that we are taking care of that vegetation. So if vegetation is growing, we're trimming it back more frequently. We're out there more often checking on things to make sure that that vegetation is getting addressed. Because again, if you think of those taps on lines from vegetation causing a spark, we don't want that to happen in those areas of high fire consequence. And we're also looking at poles and clearing poles of vegetation. So making sure that the vegetation down around poles is clear, because we want to make sure if there is a spark, we hope it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, if it drops to the ground, we don't want any vegetation to cause a spark there. And we're also looking at our equipment. So one of the things we do on a regular basis is go out and be on the lookout for potential problems with our equipment and our lines and our poles and our substations. And we do this more frequently in our fire high consequence areas, and we're making sure that we're fixing issues that have high potential for energy release and safety issues first. And just to give you an idea of what we do, so in Oregon last year, we inspected over 116,000 pieces of equipment. And then this year, we're also doing what we call safety patrols to look at all the overhead equipment in across our service area. So right here in Pilot Rock, we are going to be doing safety patrols this year. And what that means is we are from the ground just checking and looking up at going, okay, does the equipment look good? Or is there anything that looks like it could be a potential problem, so that we can report it and get it fixed? So now I want to turn to how we operate our system safely during fire season. So some of the things I was talking about, like the system hardening and the relay and reclosers, the vegetation and assets, those are things we're doing year over year to prevent things. But what happens when the fire conditions, like Chester talked about, get a little sketchy? So how are we making sure that we are operating our system safely? So one of the things I want to highlight really here is, as fire risk escalates, so does our response. And as Chester said, last year was a record-breaking year for wildfires across the U.S. According to the National Interagency Fire Center, there were more than 61,000 fires last year in the U.S., and they burned over 8.8 million acres. Yeah, I saw your cringe, and I'm right there with you. In Oregon, we have more than 2,000 fires and burned nearly 2 million acres. So if you think of that 8.8 million acres, we had almost a quarter of them in Oregon last year. And as a proud Oregonian, that's not something I want our state to be number one in. And within our service area in Oregon last year, Pacific Power, we monitored 165 of those fires because we wanted to make sure we could continue to operate the system safely within our area where there was fire or potential fire risk. So as Chester said, every day he and the rest of his meteorology team are monitoring the conditions that could cause a spark. And we are making sure we're taking steps to keep the public safe through our operational practices. And this could include placing settings on circuits to be more sensitive, so that if there's a fault, the power shuts off more quickly. And those are known as enhanced safety settings. De-energizing the circuits when there's a fire that's too close to our equipment, and that's known as an emergency de-energization. Or as a last resort, a public safety power shutoff when the weather forecast and fuels conditions are forecast to create an extreme fire risk. And Carrie's going to talk about those in more detail. And so now let's watch a video to explain a little better about how we might use de-energization to prevent wildfires.
At Pacific Power, we're committed to providing the safe, reliable service you count on every day. During conditions such as gusting winds and hot, dry weather, and in areas near trees and other types of vegetation that could ignite, we need to take certain steps to prevent wildfires and reduce their impacts. While these safety measures may interrupt your service, they can prevent catastrophic wildfire events. Let's look at 3 of the ways we help protect communities and prevent wildfires. The first is enhanced safety settings. During times when wildfire risk is elevated, we will adjust the sensitivity of some of our equipment. With these settings activated, our lines will de-energize within fractions of a second if a line is contacted by debris, wildlife, or strong winds, reducing the risk of a fire ignition. Because of this, there's an increased potential for power to be disrupted and remain off until field crews can visually inspect the lines before power can be safely restored. Next is the public safety power shutoff. Hotter, drier, and windier weather conditions can create heightened wildfire risk, and we may carry out a public safety power shutoff, or PSPS, shutting off power to specific targeted areas. A PSPS is done in partnership with local public safety partners. If a PSPS is likely to occur, we attempt to notify customers that power may be turned off and to keep affected communities informed throughout a de-energization. Once we've determined that the fire risk has passed, we will safely re-energize lines and restore service. Emergency de-energization is another wildfire prevention method that may result in a disruption of your power. When an active wildfire moves close enough to threaten burning into our lines or equipment, we will begin monitoring the fire closely to evaluate its potential spread and impact to our systems. If the fire is moving too close to our equipment, we will complete an emergency de-energization of our power lines. This process helps us prevent additional wildfires and protect first responders. Here at Pacific Power, we're dedicated to keeping our customers safe while delivering the power that our communities count on every day. During times of extreme weather events, when wildfire risk is at its highest, our wildfire prevention measures will help protect our customers and the communities we serve. To learn more, visit us at pacificpower.net/wildfire.
So one, I do hope you visit the website because it has a lot of good information beyond these videos. But as you saw in the video, we may turn off the power for a variety of reasons to prevent wildfires from starting or to reduce the impact of wildfires that are actually happening. And we want you to know how you'll be informed and what communication you can expect from us in those circumstances. So I want to make sure you understand why it's important, because on this map here, you can see that even if you're not in an area of higher consequence, you had some enhanced safety setting and emergency de-energizations last year. So on here, the red shows enhanced safety setting related outages, and the blue are emergency de-energizations. So, and these are all within a 25-mile radius of your area. And so you can see we had a lot of them in Southern Oregon, but we did have some in Pilot Rock, and you can see a couple of items in blue from emergency de-energizations. So you had the Jack Canyon fire last year. So we had a de-energization so that we could make sure that our equipment was safely off to help protect you all, help protect responders. So this is a good reason to, see, like, just because you're not in one of those fire high consequence areas, those areas in purple, we do have, when the weather's conditions hit are right, you could have outages from enhanced safety settings or emergency de-energizations from a wildfire that's coming near our equipment. So how can we keep you informed when this is happening? So for enhanced safety settings, what we will do at the start of the season, wildfire season, when we start seeing that conditions will start to merit that we need to be more sensitive in some of our settings, we will both turn those settings on and also notify you via email or letter, depending on your preference of how you want to be contacted by us, letting you know that we've turned on enhanced safety settings on your circuit, on your line for the season. If we have an outage due to an enhanced safety setting, we won't be able to proactively tell you it's going to happen because it depends on, like, if something taps our line, may cause the power to go out. But what we will do is make sure that you are getting your outage notification based off your customer communication preference. So if you signed up for outage notifications for text, email, or phone, we will make sure that you get that notification out of outage by that channel. And I think some of our customer people are here tonight, and if you need help making sure you've got your outage notification set up, they can help you with that after the presentation. So please go see Adrian at the back, and he'll be happy to help you out with that. For emergency de-energizations, remember when power is coming near or fire is coming near our equipment and we may have to turn off the power, if there's time, we will send you a notification that that de-energization is pending and may happen. So think of it as your warning. That is if we have time. If we are not able to do that, you will receive a notification that the de-energization has happened as soon as we can after that's happened. Again, using the same channels, text, phone, or email that you've chosen for outages. So again, if we have time, we will give you some advance warning. We may not have time. Again, depending on how fast the fire is moving, we may have to de-energize and then inform you after that. And I think one of the things I want to note is also this year on our outage map, if you've ever had it, hopefully you haven't had a lot of outages, but if you've ever had to see our outage map, a couple of our improvements we're making this year based off feedback from customers is that we will be putting things on the icons on the map to show if outages are related to an emergency wildfire de-energization or if it's on a circuit that is on enhanced safety settings. Because we had feedback from customers from surveys that, hey, if this outage is due to a wildfire de-energization, if it's on a circuit with enhanced safety settings, just let us know. So we're going to put that on our outage map so that it's really clear what's going on there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to talk about public safety power shutoffs. So thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, I'm Carrie Laird. I'm the Managing Director for our Power Delivery Support Team. The Emergency Management Team, the Meteorology Team that Chester spoke about, and our Wildfire Response Teams are part of my organization. I started with Pacific Power almost 28 years ago as a customer service representative, and I've had the opportunity to live and work in a number of our districts in our service territory. And I've had an opportunity to work within the operations team for a vast majority of my career. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can tell you from the experience that I've had, we're certainly dealing with an ever-changing landscape. It's vastly different in the last 5 years from the first, say, 20 of my career. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our public safety power shutoff program, what it is, why we do it, when we would do it, and how you can prepare yourselves, your families, and your neighbors in your community. Chester talked a little bit about how we become aware of the risk and how our teams forecast for the risk. And Melissa talked a little bit about how we're working to make our system more resilient, really with the long-term goal that if we can improve the resiliency of our system, actions like emergency de-energizations and certainly public safety power shutoff will become less of a necessity. But for now, PSPS is kind of a tool of last resort in our toolkit when there are extreme enough fuels conditions and weather conditions to require us to de-energize the power and ensure that our assets are not a contributor to a catastrophic fire in your community. So let's talk a little bit about what you need to know. What conditions would be present for us to enact a PSPS? To give you a little bit of perspective, this is something that in Oregon we've used once in 2022, so this is not a frequent tool, but it is something that you could see. We're looking at the fuel conditions being extremely dry, live fuel, dead fuels. We're looking at weather conditions like extreme winds or high winds. And we're looking at the terrain and the impact to the community. So do we have the right kind of coincidence of all of those things to be concerned that we should de-energize in order to keep you all safe? When these conditions are forecast, we get advance notice from our meteorology team, generally up to 5 days in advance, so that we can start preparing internally, working with our stakeholders in the community, and then transition to communicating with our customers. So I'll talk a little bit about what that timeline looks like. I talked a little bit about getting notification internally up to 5 days out. We start really working with our partners in the community at least 3 days out. And so that means we're talking to our public safety partners, our county, state, city officials, and emergency managers. We're making contact with some of our customers that support critical infrastructure so that we can understand what kind of, say, generator capacity or needs that they might have, and try and do our best to help support them. We're working with our contracted partner to set up a community resource center. We bring in either into a brick and mortar building, or we can set up a tent type facility to structure a center that you can come to that will staff. It's open generally from morning until late into the evening. It's not a shelter, it's not open overnight, but it's open so that if we do have a public safety power shut off, you can come in, you can get out of the heat, you can, it has air conditioning, we'll provide water, ice, information, charging facilities, those types of things. Once we move into kind of a 2-day out time frame, we'll start communicating with you. That means that based on your chosen method of communication, we'll start letting you know by phone, email, text message that you're in an area that may be affected by a public safety power shutoff, trying to give you time to prepare. We'll also be using our website, our outage map, our applications, our outage app, and social media to help communicate with you as well. During this time, our meteorology team is continually working on looking at the forecast and helping us to hone in on where might these actions be necessary so that we can try and reduce the impact on the community and only take action where needed. At 24 hours out, we move into what we call a public safety power shutoff warning. That means that our confidence is increasing that you're going to be affected by a public safety power shutoff. 1 to 4 hours out, we're giving you additional communication to let you know that we are planning to de-energize. It is possible that weather conditions don't materialize as forecast. You'll either get a notification that your power is scheduled to be de-energized and help you prepare, or if conditions don't materialize, we will let you know and we will send you a cancellation notification. Traditionally for us, a PSPS has been and is expected to be a short duration event. That being said, if the fuels and the weather conditions persist for long periods of time, we'll continue to keep you updated throughout the event. All right, so how are we working to support, well, actually, I'm gonna jumped ahead. I'm gonna talk a little bit about restoration. We have a team, actually a rather large team, that operates in an emergency coordination center during a PSPS. We will be continually monitoring the status of the weather and the fuels, and as soon as conditions improve, we'll begin power restoration. We'll notify you that your power is scheduled to be restored, and then we'll begin a process to inspect all of our lines that have been de-energized. We have to make sure that there hasn't been vegetation impacts or damage to the lines, and we'll step restore or make repairs as necessary. On conclusion of the public safety power shutoff, you will get notification again through your preferred method of communication, email, text, or phone, that your power has been restored. That way, if you were away and you made other preparations, you know you can go home. It also helps us to make sure that if you are home or you return home and you don't have power, you can let us know. Because if we've told you it's been restored, we think it's back on, we need a phone call from you to let us know that we need to come back and take a look. All right, so now what are we doing to support our communities and our customers, as well as our internal personnel, to prepare for events like a public safety power shutoff, but also when our communities are impacted by wildfire as well. We've got an emergency management team that works within our districts. Amber's here tonight from emergency management to do community outreach and monitoring. They help develop our overall strategies and coordinations with state, county, and local partners. They lead all of our response coordination during an event. The PSPS that I was talking about earlier would be supported by an emergency management team. And then they help maintain the agency relationships, and they help facilitate the community resource center logistics like I talked about earlier. We have a fire and emergency response team that's relatively new to PacifiCorp. These are individuals who come with fire background. They work with your fire agencies in the area. They support our response and kind of help support our interests in terms of whether it's our assets or our customer base and how we're going to respond to and address wildfires in our community. We have a Wildfire Intelligence Center, also a relatively new addition, also with fire skill set in the background. So the frequency by which we have our assets and you all have your communities affected by wildfire is increasing. And we now have a team that is really kind of monitoring outside threats on our system. We've historically had an operations team, both here locally and centrally located, to monitor outage and impacts on our system. These individuals are constantly monitoring for outside hazards. That's primarily wildfire, but could be all hazards: floods, earthquakes, landslides, that type of thing. So I'm going to take a little bit of time now to talk about what you can do to prepare. If you have a public safety power shutoff, we'd like to make sure that you're prepared, but also these are good tips in terms of how to prepare your family and yourselves for any natural disaster or emergency in your community. The first thing that you can do is have a plan. Having a plan really should consist of not relying on your electronic devices. Having your communication, your contacts, your family, your friends, your doctors, all of those things in hard copy and available and accessible should you need them. Have an understanding of the hazards in your area. We're here to talk about wildfire. Do you have flood risk, other extreme weather risks? Are you in an earthquake area? Understand the threats that you may have and be prepared either to shelter in place or to evacuate and have a plan to meet up with your family. Designate an emergency meeting place with your family members. If you are not able to contact one another by phone, and you're not all at home or not all together, where would you meet in the event of an emergency? Practice. Make sure that your friends, your family, those of you that are in your network know where you're going to go. Similarly to your contacts that I talked about earlier, your insurance and your medical information. Do you have that in hard copy on you and with you and available? Your medications, your prescriptions, and the capability to make sure that you or your loved ones have what you need if you're impacted for a longer duration. Information on any medical conditions that might be necessary if you should be interacting with first responders. Emergency contact information, child school, doctors, child care centers, those types of things. If you don't have an emergency plan, there are a lot of templates available for how to create one, and you can see those at our website, pacificpower.net/prepare. Have a kit. So if you happen to be impacted by an emergency at home, do you have 2 or 3 weeks of food and water? The suggestion being 1 gallon of water per person and per pet per day. Shelf-stable food that you will eat, or if you have picky kids, foods that your kids will eat during that time. Do you have a first aid kit? Backup medications for your critical prescriptions. Comfort items for your kids, diapers, formula, blankets, toys, entertainment. And do you have things for your pets, like a kennel, a leash, proof of ownership, a way for them to get reunited with you if you're separated? And then we'll talk a little bit too about anybody that has assistive medical devices. Do you have a way to keep durable medical equipment? Do you have your glasses? Do you have battery backup and things for those types of medical devices? Same website reference, a lot of information available on helping you prepare and making a kit for your family on our website. Defensible space. Keeping your home safe from a wildfire with defensible space. This is something that we would like to make sure that you have some opportunity to prepare for if you're a homeowner or if you're a renter. We have lots of beautiful vegetation, trees, but these are also the things that create threats around your home. So keep the landscape clean, trees and bushes trimmed, dead vegetation cleared. In the areas nearest your home, low-growing plants, annual flowers, lawn short and mowed. Space out fire-resistant plants further away from your home to prevent things from spreading. And make sure that trees are trimmed to at least 10 feet of clearance from buildings, 10 feet between trees as well. keep firewood and propane tanks more than 30 feet from your home, and exterior vents with metal mesh and wire to keep gutters and decks clear. Use fire-resistant material on home improvement projects whenever you can. We're here for you. Like to make sure that you're aware of the information that's available on our website. We've combined kind of all of our support and communication opportunities, as well as some of our bill payment, financial assistance, backup power and rebate programs, all on one website for you. pacificpower.net/accessibility. This website has all the information that you need to find out about health and medical assistance, communication support, financial support, or potentially battery power backup resources. If you are part of our medical certificate program, then you may qualify for a backup power rebate program. We also have programs to help eligible customers with utility bills and financial relief. And if you're enrolled in our medical certificate program and we happen to have a PSPS, then we do some additional outreach personally to make sure that you have an opportunity to be supported should you have assisted medical devices. It's important to understand that you have to be enrolled in the medical certificate program in order to get that outreach. And with Adrian and his team here, you can go talk to their team about how to get that set up as well. So in closing, I would like to thank you for being here and caring about what we're doing to keep the community safe and help share this information also with your neighbors and your community members that aren't here today. If I can give you 3 takeaways from tonight, it would be update your contact information so that we can reach you. You can do this on our website. You can do this by calling our customer service center, and you can do this today by visiting with our customer service representatives that are in the back of the room. Update your communication preferences. We can reach out to you by text message, by phone, by email. If you don't have a landline any longer, get that landline off of your account, update us with your cell phone information and the best way that we can contact you. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with is sign up with your local public safety emergency management partners for local emergency alerts. We will let you know relative to the items that we've talked about here, outages, enhanced safety settings, emergency de-energizations, and PSPS, but the notifications that you have available from your public safety partners and your county EM is crucial for any and all hazards. So if you're not signed up, go online, get signed up for emergency notifications from your public safety partners. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Hallie.
So as Carrie said, just a few things, you can do just to be ready for wildfire season. Oops, sorry about that. This QR code on the screen will actually help you sign up for our alerts if you'd like to do that. Most of the information we've been talking about here tonight, you can get handouts on, things like that. Over here at our booth, you can also talk to our customer service team. We'll be sticking around as well to answer questions, but if you're interested in seeing the several 100-page document that is our wildfire mitigation plan, if you're just super interested in reading that, you can access that on our website using the QR code or visit pacificcorp.com/safety. You can find those for all of our states that we operate in. But now we want to open it up for our question and answer period. So